Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the March edition of the National At-Home Dad Network's webinar series. I'm glad to have all of you joining us today, whether it's live on Facebook or perhaps some of you are going to be joining us on Blue Jeans here on the call. Please feel free to type in your questions anywhere you feel, uh, anything you feel like asking, and we're glad to have you here. This month, we're talking about something that's relatively close to my heart, and that's the idea of finding a way to balance our life goals and the things that we enjoy with all the things that we have to do as parents. I remember when I started as a stay-at-home dad, when you have an infant in the house, yeah, it's just all about that infant. But at a certain point, the kids grow up enough, and you get a little bit of time to yourself, and you start doing things, and you start setting goals for yourself, and then you have to find the time to make that happen. So, with us today, we have Dennis Connors, and we're talking about a huge example of somebody with some dedication. Um, Dennis is a two-time World Cup winning cyclist and is right now striving and training towards getting a spot on the U.S. Paralympic cycling team for 2024. So, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dennis, let him give you a little bit of background about himself, and we'll take it from there. So, hi, Dennis.
Hey, Matt. Yeah, thanks for having me on. This is awesome. Excited to do the webinar and kind of hopefully just like answer questions. If anybody's on and has some questions, like feel free to like shoot them out at any time and we'll try to get them answered. Um, but yeah, uh, name's Dennis. I got two kids that I'm a stay-at-home dad of. Kennedy, she's 8 and in second grade, and Storin, who is 6 and in first grade. He's currently home right now, sick, so I have a feeling he'll be popping in once he hears me talking. So we'll probably get a visit from little Soren. Um, yeah, I became a stay-at-home dad in 2015. We were living in Salt Lake City. Kennedy was about 10 months old, and my wife got recruited by Nike. So basically, we decided to, yeah, we'll make the move and she'll get the job, and then I'll stay at home with Kennedy until we kind of get settled, get a house purchased. I'll look for jobs in the outdoor industry where I was working. Um, and then I'll take Kennedy into the outdoors. My master's degree is in outdoor adventure programs. So really, 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 really into outdoor and adventure sports. I haven't been able to do as much of them lately with my disabilities getting declining. And I can talk more about those a little later. I talked at length about them in a podcast.
Ah,
So
yeah.
if you haven't had a chance to check out the podcast. Yeah, check that out. So I talk a lot about my disabilities in there. I think here he is. Come here, bud.
Hey, guy.
You want to be on? You're live. I'm live, dude, on Facebook right
Hi.
now. The whole world can see you. Yeah, yeah, I'm feeling good.
Oh, yeah, I know that face.
Yeah.
I'll say that
This is
that's the sick
Soren.
that's the little guy feeling a little puny.
Yeah, this is Soren. You want to say hi? No.
No.
All
Okay.
right. You just want to sit for a bit?
So I have to ask my first question for
Yeah.
you is, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously you're working towards getting a spot on the 2024 Paralympic cycling team.
Yeah.
How did you get to that point? I cycle and I do, I'll do a triathlon here and there, but I mean, these are all like local things. I wouldn't even know where to start.
Yeah. So I started cycling when we lived in Salt Lake City. My wife actually got me into it. Um, and I was on a regular two-wheel bike. I ride a trike now for the Paralympic team. Um, and I was doing essentially like a mental health therapy with a veterans organization. And so I would ride locally in Salt Lake with them. And then they would do these challenge rides, which are really cool. They would go like 5 to 7 days somewhere, like they had a couple during the year, like across Texas or through the Great Lakes area, or there was one that went from like Washington D.C. to New York City, or maybe it
Nice.
was reverse, something like that.
I
But
know
they
there's
also
one
did
that
one,
goes from Philly to DC every year.
yeah, yeah. So and then there's one that goes from San Francisco to Los Angeles down the coast, California.
Nice.
And me being from California, I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely want to do that one. So I did it. That's how I kind of got into cycling. Um, I did that the first year, second year we lived in Oregon, um, right after Soren was born. So my wife Krista was still on maternity leave
Okay,
from her
and
job,
where
and
are you? And where are you in Oregon?
we're in Beaverton, so it's
Oh,
like
okay.
the suburb right next to Portland.
Yeah, I went to culinary school in Portland.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we're in
believe it or not,
Beaverton.
my wife is a Reedy.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I was doing that, and I was pretty like, like I was a fit person. I was in, you know, the military, came out of the military, uh, essentially like a professional rock climber when I came out. Um, uh, yeah, and just got into cycling like real hard because it was great, and I could do it quickly, and I could put Kennedy um, in a trailer and take her with
Mm-hmm.
me. When I was climbing, it was a lot harder to do that. Hey,
Let's
bud.
say I know
Bud,
that there's
fine. There, he'll figure it
I know that there's a lot. We've got a lot of cycling dads in the
out.
network, and a lot of them got
Yeah.
started with that trailer behind their bike,
Yep.
pulling the kids behind them. Unfortunately, by the time I discovered cycling, I think at that point my youngest was in preschool already. My youngest would have
Yeah.
been around 4 or 5 by the time I rediscovered cycling, so I missed out on that whole pulling the trailer thing.
You didn't miss out on much.
I missed out on
Just
pulling
made it
extra
way
weight.
harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got
Yeah. And
started
being
into
like real fit.
cycling. Now how do
Yeah.
you
So
get
I'm
from
just,
there to the elite level of competition that you're doing now?
yeah. So there was another veteran on those rides, and she was gold medalist at the 2016 Rio Paralympics, double gold medalist there. And like multiple time world champion. And she was like, "Hey, Dennis, you should come race in paracycling." And that's when I decided, I was like, "Well, I'm not, I don't have the injuries that I can't classify." And she
Mm-hmm.
was like, "But what about your brain injuries from the military?" And I was like, I don't have any brain injuries from the military." And she laughed and she was like, "But what about all the times, you were in those explosions and you were attacked and like all the things we've talked about?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know. It didn't seem like a brain injury to me." And she was like, well, you ride a bike like you have a brain injury. Like I like riding with you, but I won't ride next to you because it's not safe. Because I like would be all over the road.
Oh, good Lord.
And I didn't know it. Yeah, I just like drift into traffic or whatever. Uh,
Yeah, don't
yeah,
fight with
so I was like,
cars. They're gonna win.
yeah. And I'm like, okay, I'll. And she's like, you probably have brain injuries. You should like maybe get that looked at. Because if you don't know you have them, and then I was talking to other vets, and they're like, "Yeah, you have all the signs of TBIs. I can't believe you haven't had those looked at." So I did, and they found evidence of TBIs and actually a stroke on my cerebellum.
Wow.
And yeah, I just essentially like toughed them out in the military. Um,
Yeah, yeah. That is
so
kind of the American man's way, isn't it?
100%. Especially when you're in the Marine Corps, in Special Operations Command, and like it's
I
wartime, right? You're like, I'm good. Your leg could
Yeah, I can't imagine
be
the
broken.
pressure in that environment.
Yeah. So I get diagnosed with these TBIs, and I go to my first race. Um, and that was in 2019. Uh, and I'm like, okay, that was awesome. I really enjoyed that. Um,
Now, at this point, are you still racing on a standard two-wheel bike
yeah, I was on a two-wheel bike.
when you went to your
I was
first race?
right. And then that was in summer of 2019, and then
Uh-huh.
2020 rolls around. I'm training. Um,
And the world
anybody
stopped.
could, and the world stops. And in May of 2020, life got real interesting because I had a stroke.
Oh no.
Yeah. So, and I spent subsequently 9 months in rehab, like relearning how to walk and getting strength back on my left side, and uh, like just bent on getting back on the bike so I could compete, and getting back into climbing so I could compete, um, and go do all the things that I used to do. And so I'm going through therapy, and my coach, who's still my coach now for cycling, he's like, hey, let's put you on a trike so at least you can ride outside and it will be good for your like mental health and clarity. And I got on the trike and I was like, this is life changing. I can do this. I should have been on this trike before, like
Before the
before my
stroke.
stroke. Like this thing is amazing. It was the first time I was able to follow the line on the road and not like deviate off it every couple pedal strokes. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. So I start riding the trike. Um, 2021 comes around, they open up the first competition. Um, I re-go through the classification with all the new medical stuff. And they're like, yeah, you're definitely on a trike. Um, and I won both races. It was two races over 4 days, and I won both for my
And
category.
what kind of distance are you racing in these?
So the time trial was about 20 kilometers.
Okay.
Um, and then the road race is between like 40 and 60.
Okay.
Yeah. So with the trikes, like we're a lot slower. We have a lot more friction, a lot more,
Well,
like
yeah,
aerodynamic drag. Yeah. And we have like my left side has about 20% strength.
okay.
And like coordination and tremor um so yeah, I win both those races, and that just kind of springboarded me into it. Unfortunately, you had to commit to going to a race in Belgium
Uh-huh.
before that race even before that race even happened. You had to commit to going to the World Cups, but I was so new, and Belgium still had a 10-day quarantine, so you had to do a 10-day quarantine plus 7 days of race prep, or like plus 3 days of race play, 4 days of racing. I
Mm-hmm.
just couldn't
No.
imagine going to Belgium at the time by myself, no Team USA support to do
Right.
that race. So I didn't go. And then but the director of the team is like, hey, I want to send you to Portugal to the World Championships. We're going to send a very small team. The people who aren't going to Tokyo for the Paralympic Games, we're going to send a team out to Portugal for the World Championships.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, awesome, because that then gives me a chance to qualify for Tokyo.
Gotcha.
Um, so yeah, they sent me out to Portugal. I got third in my first international race.
Which is freaking
So
unbelievable for the record.
yeah, yeah, it was awesome. It was crazy. And then a week later, we had Paralympic trials, and I won there for my category.
Uh-huh.
And then, like, during trials, the Paralympics do this weird thing where the international body will go to each country, and because we have so many different categories of disability, they'll
Right.
say, "Hey, you qualified 12 male spots for the Paralympics, USA, but of those 12, you have to bring this category, this category, and this category." And
Okay.
then, so bring your top riders in those categories. You have to bring those. So then when they go to different countries and tell different countries different categories, so then
Right.
it's not just like one category of racers. like a
Gotcha.
country brings like 5 racers in one category. You know, it
Because
spreads it out.
I was going to say, like a lot of people, I'm not incredibly familiar with the Paralympics. I mean, I know they
Yeah.
exist. I know that they exist. I mean, all of us do. But the
Yep.
images that I've always seen of the Paralympics usually are, you've got amputees that have the blades on that are running.
Yep.
I've never actually seen a tricycle like in
Yeah, we're a small
cycling.
category. Well, our category is growing because people are realizing there's a lot of people who are in car accidents who have, brain injuries or, um, construction accidents or whatever. They can get on the tricycle and ride and then, become an athlete and still compete.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to be either paraplegic or quadriplegic or an amputee.
Hmm. Which is what I had
For like
always associated it with.
exactly. So
Now,
all the other disabilities, cerebral palsy, any of the disabilities that affect coordination and balance,
so,
mostly we're
okay.
on trikes. Yeah.
Now,
If you can't balance a regular bicycle.
out of curiosity,
Yeah,
while you're doing this training and racing and the rest of it, at this point, you've got a couple of kids at home, right?
I totally 100%.
And you're a stay-at-home dad. So how in the world are you juggling this with your travel and your training and all the rest? I mean, there's only so much you can do on an indoor trainer.
Yeah. Yeah. So majority of my training is on the indoor trainer. Probably 95% of it. One, it's just more efficient. Two, you can work very prescriptive workouts
Mm-hmm.
where you don't have to stop pedaling. Like when you ride outside, there's hills, there's stoplights, there's stop signs, there's traffic. On the indoor trainer, there's none of that. So
Right.
it's like you're riding on a closed course almost.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
I'm
so
on.
a majority of my time is on the indoor trainer,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where most people can make a lot of fitness gains. And that's how I'm able to fit it in.
Mm-hmm.
Riding an hour on the indoor trainer is like riding 2 to 3 hours outside
Yeah. Once you throw
with all
in
the
travel
stops.
and yeah.
Yeah, with
Now,
all
I
the
would say
stops you have to make.
I'm very lucky. I live in Durham, North Carolina, and
Oh,
we've got a bunch of really great rails to trails setups.
yep.
My personal favorite is the Neuse River Trail, which
Okay.
is a 31-mile course that has
Yep.
one street crossing in 31 miles.
That's nice.
So you can actually get like a good. I think the street crossing is at about 20. Is at about mile 24, so you can get 24 straight miles in without
Yeah.
having to stop.
Yeah, that's nice. We have a trail like that here. But I find that bike paths, you can't typically ride as fast as I need to.
Yeah. So what are
So,
you mentioned that the trikes are obviously a little slower. I mean, they don't have the aerodynamics that like a racing bike does or a
right.
time trial bike. What kind
Yep.
of average speeds are you racing at?
So in a time trial, my average speed is about 21 to 23 miles an hour.
Good Lord. Okay.
And
You are
I,
significantly faster than I am on a two-wheeled bike on a closed course, doing everything I can.
yeah. And then my road races will be, when we're moving and we're fighting for position, we'll be in the 25 miles an hour range,
Okay.
you know?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
you're moving along at a
yeah,
clip.
we're moving.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean like
it's still the cool thing is it's like it's still bike racing. Granted, some of the other categories, you know, there's guys in the who are Paralympic champions. And they ride two wheel bikes.
uh-huh.
There has been guys who are able-bodied pro cyclist.
Uh-huh.
Maybe they have like a portion of a foot missing, or you know some sort of movement, like range of motion type thing, where they can't move their leg all the way or something. So they qualify. They're in a category that's the disability is not as severe,
Right.
but they're racing at a pro level. One of my friends who races in that category, like the least disabled
Mm-hmm.
category, um, he just won men's 45 plus age category, able body, in
Nice.
Valley of the Sun. And he's a paracyclist. And he
Nice.
beat like 50 other riders. Um, and if he was in the able body pro field, he would have been top 10.
Okay.
Um,
So,
and then another guy who's on the team who's a single leg amputee,
mm-hmm.
he won his category against all able bodied people.
That's unreal.
So so all the people in his category he beat all had two legs. So
That's
yeah,
I mean
it was good.
that's amazing. Now, I understand how you get a lot of your training done because you're working with an indoor
Yeah.
trainer.
Yep.
And these days the indoor trainers are fantastic. I mean, I've got a fluid trainer.
Yep.
I've got power meters on my pedals. I've got
Perfect.
cadence, I've got speed, I've got a power meter. I've got enough that I can use the indoor trainer. I just really hate
Hmm.
it. I can't get past that mental block of just sitting there. It's so boring. Um,
Yeah,
but
I
again,
guess
that's
now
why
that
you
you
compete at an elite level and I don't. I'm a back of the pack sprint triathlon guy.
well, there's I think like yeah, is it boring? Yeah, do I like delay going out to the garage? Like definitely. But at the same time, when you stick with it and you have the discipline to do it, um, and you use structure, you don't just like go out and ride or whatever, or get on Zwift if you're familiar with Zwift,
I
and
am.
just ride. Like if you have a training plan and structure, and you know where your weaknesses are, your strengths, and you're working on that, and then all of a sudden, you've done 2 3 week blocks. So it's been 3 weeks, a rest week, 3 weeks, and then you go out on a group ride and you're just like blasting, or you go out ride and you like get a PR, PR of a
Personal
climb or
record.
something. Yeah,
Yeah.
then you're like, oh, that works. Like
Okay.
let's keep doing that. Like you do some structure into your training, and that actually helps with the time situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I get up in the morning, make breakfast, get the kids' lunches ready, go wake up my wife, um, get her coffee going, um, get her breakfast going. Then we're able to have a couple-minute conversation after one of us walks the kids down to the bus stop. But once they went to school was the real game changer, I would say. Like
Yeah, this year is the
honestly, when
first
they're
year.
little, yeah, once they were both in school, I mean, when they went to preschool, like I would drop them off and like have my kit and my bike on and
That's
then
what
like
I did
go.
my first year. But
Yeah.
again, it was
And
only half a day preschool.
right.
So it
Right.
was one of those
Luckily
like you
ours was
dropped him
full
off,
day.
you
Yeah.
could make it to the trail, you could ride for like an hour and a half, 2 hours before you had to turn
Yeah.
around to be there, with travel time and getting on and off the bike, getting shoes on and helmet and all the rest of that fun stuff. Now, what about your travel?
Travel's hard.
If the kids are in school, I mean, for you to be able to travel and like you said, going somewhere like Portugal,
Yeah.
it's 4 days of racing. Obviously you've got to it's a full day of travel to get there. You can't like race the day after you land.
Yeah, yeah. The travel is so luckily, like we don't really have any family in the area. My parents just moved to the area, last year, and they're like, "We want to move super close by," and we're like, "Great, let's do it." And they moved like an hour and a half away. So it's like just far enough to be like, "Oh my God, I can't just call you and be like, can you come over? There's the sun's out and I want to go right outside today." You know, it's just too far for that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, like I guess with my wife's job, it's very it's flexible, and they have a really good like work life balance at her work.
Mm-hmm.
And so when she's like, I have to leave to pick up my kids, no one's like, well, why are you leaving? Where's your husband? Like, why don't you have him in daycare? Um,
Right.
she can kind of like, it is Nike, so she can kind of drop the like whole like, my husband's at paracycling world championships,
Right.
and everyone's like, oh, cool, like, um, but yeah, so she's able to pick them up and then work remotely.
Okay.
She does have to work in the office because she works at with Nike manufacturing right now with their
Mm-hmm.
manufacturing innovation. Um, but for a long time, she worked in apparel innovation. So she was able to do a lot of it from home. Um, and then I've had like my in-laws come up from California, or my parents. I would have like my mom come, or I just kind of figure it out.
Makes
And
sense. I mean,
honestly,
go
it's
ahead.
super stressful. It's the most stressful part of the whole thing, of
I
the
mean, I could see
whole
that.
being an athlete, being gone, and then just having that added stress where my wife's working like crazy job, and then she's like trying to do essentially my full-time job too. Um, yeah, so like coming up, we have I'll be in Europe April 16th to May 8th.
Good Lord. Okay, so that's about
Yeah,
what, 2.5 weeks?
yeah, it's actually just over 3. It's like 22
Okay.
days. But luckily, like with um she works from home Mondays and Fridays. That's the schedule now from the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic. And so she'll pick up the kids at the bus stop at 2:30, or almost 3 actually. And then, they'll, because of their ages now and how responsible they are and how they're like really, it's like dad's gone at a race. And so then they really kind of step it up.
Step it up and help
It's,
out.
yeah,
Yeah,
they do. And it's
that's
really
awesome.
cool. And they like doing it. Like my daughter's like, okay, like dad's gone. Like I can get the snack. Yeah, when I'm here and I
Not a
pick them up,
chance.
they're just like, well, I don't want a snack. I can't do it. Daddy, help me. And then
Oh.
when I'm gone, it's like, we made dinner. Like, what? So
So
that helps a lot.
a lot of it is, I mean, from what I'm gathering, it just takes a whole lot of advanced planning,
It
um,
does. It
and,
takes a
and
lot of advanced
coordination.
planning.
The
Yep.
fact that your wife works for a company that's a little bit more understanding and has a
Yep.
job that enables her to work remotely. I mean, for
Yes.
instance, my wife is a physician in the emergency room of the hospital. You can't do that
Right.
remotely.
Right.
you know,
100%.
Now at this
Yeah.
point, at this point, because of what she does, she can stack her schedule. Last weekend, the board of directors for the National At Home Dad Network, which,
Hmm.
I've been on the board now, this is my fourth year, and I'm
Cool.
the secretary, but we did our annual board retreat.
Yep.
So
I saw that.
because we're all scattered across the country, we generally only see each other twice a year, at the
Yeah.
convention and at the board retreat. And for me to get away for that weekend, she had to stack her schedule. So she was working more shifts before I left and more shifts
Yeah.
after I get home. And she does the same thing for, when I go to Home DadCon. But these are these are important things because, and I'm sure you can speak to this better than I, it's a huge benefit to be able to go out there and do something that is independent of being dad.
Yeah, totally. 100%. Like, there was a comment the other day, I want to say yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
on our dad network, and it was like, hey, I'm new to this, but I feel like I need to get a job. And like I went through that for years where I was like, I'm not providing, I'm not doing anything, because like that's how, you know,
That's
the
what society
American,
taught us.
yeah, the American patriarchy tells us, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and so then, and especially like with my background and like being in these like machismo type jobs all the time, I had to really like work on like, no, like I do provide value and I do need some time. Hey, bud. Okay.
Well,
Um,
the statement that my
yes.
wife said to me, because again, like everybody else, I went through this as well. I've been a stay-at-home dad since my
Yep.
daughter was born 9 years ago. I've got her, and then I've got my son who is turning 6 in April. So
Yep.
about the same age spread, about 1 year different from yours. We waited one extra year between. But the fact is, in the time that I've been a stay-at-home dad, my wife like was able to move up in the hospital hierarchy
The remote should be right out there.
to the point that, she's in a supervisory position now.
Yep.
And like she said, there's no way that she could have done that if she
It's a
had been
arm of the
juggling
couch.
if she had been juggling kids and pickup and the rest of it. Like she can
Totally.
excel because she knows that I have it, that we have it held down here at the house.
Yeah. That's
You
exactly
know.
what's happened to my wife. Like she's in a supervisory role now too. Um, and like I do feel like I was part of that success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like if I didn't do what I did here, then she wouldn't be able to put as much as she does into her job
Yeah.
and be as successful as she can be. And I love seeing her successful.
Oh yeah. But
You
I
know.
think the point that I was trying to make is that as humans, not it has nothing to do with being like a
Mhm.
guy or a dad or anything else. Just as people, when you become a parent, so much of your identity becomes I'm Lily's dad, I'm Patrick's dad,
Mhm.
I'm not Matt.
Right.
I mean, like we all have it. If I go through my contacts in my phone, half the contacts in my phone have someone's name and then which kid they belong to
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
making the
Exactly.
play dates and the rest of it. Okay,
Adeline's
that's
dad.
Brinley's
Yeah.
dad. That's Madison's
Yeah.
dad, or mom. And one of the big things that I got out of picking up triathlon is that when I'm out training, when I'm out at a race, even if my family
Hmm.
comes, because they come to some of my races, not all of them,
Yeah.
because, sometimes the race is being held in a location that is not real conducive to having two small children hold still for 4 hours.
Totally.
We did one that
Yeah.
was on a college campus. They stayed home for that. When we do the ones that
Yeah.
take place in like a park where there's a playground, oh, that's perfect. Uh,
Totally. Yeah.
right. But when I'm out there, the people in that community, they know me as just Matt. Like they know I'm a
Yep.
dad, but they know me as me, not me as somebody's dad or somebody's husband. And I think that makes a real difference. And
Yeah.
society wise, getting that job seems to be one of the things that we all identify ourselves as. I mean, for
Yep.
25 years of my life, if you had asked me to describe myself, the first words out of my mouth would have been, I'm a chef,
Yep.
because that's what I did. It had nothing to do with who I was. That was just what I did.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and especially in the beginning, being a stay at home dad, there's always been that feeling of like a loss of identity.
100%. I would agree with that completely. And I think I had that, I had that double almost because there's a big thing when you come out of the military, there's like a loss of identity, right? Like,
Right.
oh, what do you do? Like, I'm a Marine, like, I'm in the Marines, like, this is what I do. And then you come out and you don't have that. And there's a lot of guys who struggle with that, and a lot of, guys and gals. And then, they go into some job field and they become whatever, and that becomes part of them. But then you become a stay-at-home dad, and there's like I don't know, for a while, like I thought there was like people were judging me about it, like, oh, you're a stay-at-home dad, like, okay, and then it's like, well, yeah, bro, like this is harder sometimes than combat. like, like, like there are
This
days
is
when they
much
were
harder
little
than
and I
working
was,
the line. I mean, I'll say that
yeah,
right now. As a
yeah,
cook chef, the worst Saturday night rush was still
yeah,
easier than this because I knew at some point it would end and I could stop. This never
yeah.
ends.
I'm gonna open up
And
my
and
I'm gonna
that's a
open up my
tough one.
athletic.
Oh, I was going to say one
Sorry.
thing, and full disclosure, I know that one of your sponsors as an athlete is Athletic Brewing.
It
I'm
is, and I
actually a
happen to have.
I'm actually a brand ambassador for Athletic Brewing as well. They're a non-alcoholic brewery. Basically, they brew delicious craft beer that's just without the alcohol.
Yeah, it's great. I got a new one I'm trying right now. I've never tried this one. Have you seen this one? The souped up,
Yeah,
got
that's
coffee
the
in it.
one. That's the
So,
protein one, right?
mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, I just did like an hour and a half bike ride right before coming on here. So I'm like
Okay, so
low
yeah,
calorie.
perfect
I'm
time
like,
for
oh,
a
see, and
recovery drink.
exactly.
Now,
Yeah. So being able to balance the time and have that like identity, um, but then also like picking up the identity of like, no, I'm proud to be a stay-at-home dad. Like it's not, I mean, I'm raising two kids that can like do all kinds of stuff on their own.
mm-hmm,
And like I feel like I have a connection with my kids that a lot of other dads don't. You don't get that connection, especially with like my daughter.
mm-hmm.
And as she gets older, I know that's gonna pay dividends.
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
Like there's gonna be a trust there when
mm-hmm.
she's a teenager that I don't think would be there without it. And so like I'm proud of that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And you
and
hit the
I
nail
use
on the
that as,
head. You said in the beginning, you had this feeling that like people were judging you. And
yeah.
I had this discussion with my wife the other night. I used to take my daughter to the park. And,
Hmm.
I always felt like I was isolated and all the moms were over on the side and nobody would ever come over
Totally.
and talk to me. And, I'm like, oh, they're looking at me funny. And in hindsight, I didn't exactly walk over to them and introduce myself either.
Yeah,
It's not like I
true.
walked up and tried and they blew me off. Um,
Yeah.
I've been at this for over 9 years now. And I'm going back and I'm rethinking some of those situations and realizing that so much more of that judgment was in my own head than was actually
Hmm.
happening.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think that, you know, being a stay-at-home dad, unfortunately, is stigmatized in our society still. But like when people meet stay-at-home dads, that they're like, oh, like you try to change that. I try to change that perspective,
Yeah.
and of like, no, I'm a stay-at-home dad, but I also, I'm a Paralympic athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm a stay-at-home dad, it allows me to do that. Is it hard? Yes. Um, one of my best friends years ago told me nothing worth doing is ever easy.
No. No.
And so, yeah. So this is
Now,
awesome. I mean,
I,
it's
I do have to ask one really, really important question that only the cyclist nerds like me are going to care about. Um,
okay.
I, I, I'm fascinated by your trike.
Okay.
So you got an Argon 18 here, which is a heck of a frame set, man. But I
Yeah,
swear it looks to me like this is a standard frame set,
it is.
and all you did was swap out like a modified rear wheel?
Yeah, so there's a company, um, they don't make them anymore, but they did, so we're trying to get new ones made, um, that basically makes an axle on the back that connects to the normal drivetrain. That
Uh-huh.
in the rear dropouts is where it connects.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then the cassette is a little bit behind those because you want it to be a little bit longer for stability.
Right.
And then it just pedals like a normal bike. And inside where the cassette is,
Uh-huh.
there's two sets of free wheel hubs or
Uh-huh.
free wheels. So then, or two sets of pawls, and each one has an axle going out to each
To
rear
each
wheel.
wheel.
So then it's like a differential. So when you're going around a corner, one can turn faster than the other. But then
Gotcha. Because
when
otherwise you
you
would spill.
right, yeah, when you engage by pedaling, it turns both wheels. So typically
Nice.
we're coasting in the corners and
Right.
then pedaling when we get out of them, because we want that differential to work.
Right. Which
Um,
is honestly
yeah, so
similar
it's
to the way I ride. I mean, I generally
yeah,
don't pedal my way through a sharp corner. I mean, if it's a
correct.
gradual turn, I'll pedal through it. But if I'm making like a hard left or a hard right, I tend to just try to get my pedals
Yeah,
to where they won't hit the ground as I lean over.
yeah. So it's on a trike, it's the opposite. Typically, when you're on a bike, right, like you want your inside leg up and your outside leg down, and you're putting pressure on that outside leg and leaning the bike.
Mm-hmm.
And you're on a trike, it wants to flip out of the turn because of the inertia going through.
Right.
So we actually lean off it and have our inside foot down as opposed to up. So we're turning and holding the bike from essentially flipping over. Like remember those like old three-wheel ATVs
Oh yeah.
that they
Oh yeah.
outlawed because they flipped
I'm
over all the
51.
time?
Those were the only ATVs when I was a kid.
Yeah, so it's essentially the bicycle version of one of those. um, so they're stable, much more stable than a bike, like because it won't just tip over.
Right.
Um, but going around a corner can be dicey, and then with how wide they are, if we're in a pack of 20,
Yeah.
it can our wheels are touching a lot. Um,
And
just
I'm
because
assuming drafting is a little different with a trike.
drafting's if you're like if drafting is the same,
Okay.
like in a pack race, like in a road race, we put these draft bars on the back, so
Mm-hmm.
it connects to the rear. It connects to the axle, and then basically there's a bar behind the two wheels. So then a wheel can't go in the middle.
I could see where that would tangle up rough
Yeah,
for both people.
yeah. So hand cycles have to have them too. Those draft bars, so then they don't get in between the two rear wheels. Um, but yeah, no, we ride. I mean, we ride, and I try to be an inch or two away from the person's draft bar.
That's unreal. That is
Yeah.
absolutely unreal. Um,
So
Now again, oh, here we go. We got somebody who asked, does cycling season overlap with your climbing season?
yes, it does. Unfortunately, I know a couple people who are two sport athletes, but they do like Nordic skiing or something in the winter. Unfortunately, climbing and cycling are on the same schedule. And this year, cycling, the big main body called the UCI,
Mm-hmm.
is doing with a combined world championships in Scotland in August. So it's going to be able body, like pros, like so all the Tour
Right.
de France pros and everybody you see, men and women. Um, it's going to be the Velodrome World
Uh-huh.
Championships, so track, para, mountain bike, BMX, and then there's some other like kind of crazy disciplines in there. Um, One called trials, where they basically like hop the bikes like on logs and upright, like like um, and then indoor cycling, which is like essentially like soccer with bikes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Like
it's
there's a
crazy.
ball involved and everything?
Yeah, and they like hit the ball with their front tire.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
So
seems
it's a
really complicated to me.
yeah, so there's a combined world championships. So that's like a big like 10 or 12-day section.
Mm-hmm.
And rock climbing, para rock climbing is having their world championships also in August. And they happen on the same 4 days.
Oh, I was
And so
assuming you were
one's
going to
in
say it was on the opposite side of the world and you didn't have a chance to
they're
get there, but on top of
they're
that, it's the
literally on the
same 4 days.
same 4 days. They're both in Europe. So one's in the cycling's in Scotland, Glasgow, and climbing's in Bern in Switzerland. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, man, like if it's like right after cycling, then I could just go because I'll be in Europe anyway.
Right.
But it does. Um, we have the two World Cups in April that I'll be gone for 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then luckily, right in the middle, and then we actually have a World Cup in Alabama this year. So we
Okay.
have a domestic World Cup, which is really cool. We've had a race
Nice.
there the last 2 years, and now they've turned it into a World Cup.
I got to ask, where are you racing in Alabama? I mean, I'm assuming it's in the northern
Yeah,
section where you get a little bit more of the hills and the mountains.
kind of. It's in Huntsville,
Okay, I know
so
where
it's
Huntsville is.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's actually like in this like big business park.
Okay.
So the course goes in this business park, and it's an amazing course. Um,
As a dad, I can tell you, bring the
yeah.
kid with you when you go to Huntsville.
Oh
There's an
yeah.
amazing NASA Space Center there.
Yep. Yeah, we've had two races there the last 2 years, and
Okay.
I've gone to the space center, and I'm like, I want to go to space camp afterwards. Um,
I would say I went to
yeah.
that Space Center in 1979, I think,
Hmm.
was the first time I went when I was about 7. So
There you
it was cool then. I'm sure it's even cooler now.
go. Yeah,
Now,
it's really cool.
Now I noticed that you mentioned that Athletic is sponsoring you. I noticed that
Huh?
you're wearing a decent amount of gear here, so I know that you have other sponsors. Who are you working with?
Right now, I work with Athletic,
Uh huh.
um, Project Echelon. They're actually a pro cycling team, able-bodied pro cycling team, and their mission is to empower veterans through cycling.
Nice.
So I do a lot of stuff with them, and then I get linked up with the sponsors that the team has.
Right.
Um, and then I've been working with Scratch Labs for 10 years probably through rock climbing and just knowing guys who work there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Reynolds Wheels, they're one of my sponsors. Who else? Reynolds Wheel. Oh, 100% sunglasses. They're
Yeah.
awesome. So 100%. And yeah, that's it right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not a lot. I'm hoping for more. Um,
Now,
but the first thing the sponsor always asks you these days is how many Instagram followers do you have? And you're like, that's so arbitrary because it doesn't matter. I could go buy 10,000 followers.
yeah, and then
Yeah,
even when you have a decent number of followers, it's a
yeah,
constantly fluctuating number because you'll get 5, 10 new people following you today, but like 8 of them
yeah,
were people that wanted to sell you crypto. and,
exactly,
and
exactly.
when you tell them no, they go away instantly.
Yeah, exactly.
Now,
So it's
what is your Instagram though? I know I follow you.
Yeah, thanks. My Instagram is DC. like Dennis Connors underscore rides underscore trikes. So DC rides trikes.
I recommend to everybody that y'all give him a follow. It's a really fun Instagram account to follow. You go to a lot of really cool places. I find it really fun to see the pictures of. Honestly, I'm still fascinated by the bike. I'm absolutely
Yeah.
fascinated by the tricycle. There's no two ways about it. But I
Yeah,
mean,
it's pretty cool.
it's just, I mean, you look like you have a lot of fun with your family. I mean, there's the
I do.
pictures of you guys out playing in the snow are freaking fantastic.
Yeah. So like every Saturday for the last 10 weeks, we're fortunate enough to have a vacation home near Bend, Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my wife and I, our first date, was out skiing in Tahoe, and so skiing's a huge part of our family. And the kids had ski school every Saturday. So
Nice.
Friday night, like Friday, I get everything packed up in the car, and we drive to our house. Usually, sometimes like I'll try to take a nap during the day or whatever, because my wife, and that's her vacation time too, and her
Mm-hmm.
relaxing time. And that's one thing we try to balance is like, hey, I'm really into this, but like I'm a stay-at-home dad and I'm a pro athlete. And sometimes I got to do this, which
Mm-hmm.
one's the priority. So on the weekends, boom, like that stay-at-home dad priority is on. I don't talk about cycling. I don't bring my bikes. I'm try to be present with the kids. Um, Try to be present with my wife. Like spend time with them, spend that quality time. Because then Monday, once they go to school, bang, I can turn that other one back on and get it done.
Absolutely.
And then oh, they come home from school, back on. Like try to get my cycling done, get my workouts done, get everything done while they're in that time frame. Um, and yeah, so I use a lot of checklists. Uh, like I have a book.
I do a lot of
It's like a
timers.
it's
I
like a day
literally have
planner almost.
48 alarms set on my phone these days.
Yeah,
Because there's a
yeah,
lot of one where if I go out for a ride, I'll set an alarm that just says, at this point, you better be turned around and headed back home. Uh-oh. Oh, there you are. Okay, for a second there, you froze.
oh, oh, okay,
No, no,
I'm
you're
still here.
back. Um, but like I have to turn around at this point because if I don't,
Yep,
I'm not going to make it to the school in time to pick the kids up.
right,
Now my kids don't do bus stop. We're fortunate enough that their elementary school is just over half a mile from our house,
cool.
so we literally walk back and forth to school every day.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah,
Which is fantastic. But there have been days that I picked them up with a full cycling kit on underneath the cargo shorts and t-shirt
oh
because
yeah, no, yeah,
daughter's embarrassed when daddy shows up in spandex. She's old enough now that she cares.
yeah, yeah, yeah. My daughter's not there yet. She
Oh, it's
doesn't.
coming. It's coming.
Yeah, but like I I don't know. Maybe it's just because like I coach their soccer team, so I know like a lot of the little like second grade girls. Um, and like I try to bring everyone in on the journey.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was coaching a team, but I had to go to a race, so I was
Mm-hmm.
gone for a game. And then like I'll send the team like a message from the race.
Nice.
So then when like just like I'll just like take a video, be like, hey, I hope you guys, do great in your game today. I'm thinking about you. Here's a picture of Belgium where I'm at. Here's my bike. Team USA, go Team USA. And then, and then that like when I come back, they're like all so excited about it. So just like making sure that I do that stuff and involve everybody
Mm-hmm.
helps with that balance of me being gone and
Oh
me,
yeah.
pursuing my own goal, like putting that like bringing that one up for a bit, that
Mm-hmm.
priority of being a dad, and then boom, going right back to being an athlete. So it's it's definitely taken time to figure it out. and a lot of pain and a lot of arguing and a lot of like like calls that you're never doing this again. I can't take it. And like, well, I have a race in the morning, or like, would we go race? Like, they treat us like we're like full on pro cyclists. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we get home from the race, boom, you need to be in your hotel room with your legs up. You have massage at 2:30. You've got dinner at 5. You've got so it's like, okay, they schedule like naps. They're like, you
They're
have to
doing the
take a nap.
pressurized leg sleeves.
Yep, definitely doing those things, like doing everything. And then like, I'm like, why didn't you call? Like, well, I was taking a nap. Really? You were taking a nap? Like, yes, I was taking a nap.
I am
Um,
required.
so yeah, so going
Well,
through just the learning and planning and prep and, you know,
and again,
sharing. Yeah.
like so much else when it comes to relationships with your partners, communication is key.
100%.
You have to communicate with your partner in this because y'all are a team.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're not going to like what you hear, but you still got to communicate.
Yeah.
And that's a big one. Now I'm going to make a shameless ask here because I'm not afraid.
Sure.
Um, we have an annual convention that we do every year. This
Yeah.
coming year is going to be in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It is,
Okay.
and I'm terrible with remembering dates. I'm trying to get to my calendar now. To go there it is.
Yeah.
It's like September, the third weekend in September. Yeah. So it will be on the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd of
Okay.
September, which is a Friday or a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. There's guys
Okay.
who show up early to go run around and do things, and guys who stay late to do the tourist thing. But the content starts with a nice little kickoff party on Thursday night, and then we have our convention Saturday, all day Sunday, where we bring in speakers. It's
Okay.
like any other work convention. The line that we often use is it's professional development for professional dads. We've had people come on and do, breakouts on everything from meal planning to vacationing with kids to, in Portland, Oregon, they brought in clowns to teach us how to make balloon animals, which, for the
Nice.
record, as a dad skill, is an awesome skill to have. You will be a hit with the
Oh, I
young
bet.
kids. I actually brought
I
on a
bet.
clown and we did a webinar about it a couple of years ago, and it was fantastic.
Oh, fun.
But
Nice.
we'd love to have you come speak, man, if you could fit it into your schedule. I know you're busy. I'm not going to ask you to give me an answer here, but
Yeah.
it would be great to have you come in and talk because there's a lot of guys in this community that you would connect with. There's a lot of ex-military guys.
Yeah.
We have, I'm trying to think, on the board right now, Brock, Grady, and Charlie are all ex military. And
Yeah.
Sergio is married to, an officer in the Army.
There you
So,
go.
I mean, there's a lot of military dads. We've got a lot of dads who, may have disabilities
Look it up.
or, maybe in a position where, they're not fully I don't know the proper terminology, but where you would be able to connect on that level, and we'd just love to have you.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna fill out the form to come
Sweet.
speak. So hopefully, you guys, if I do, and I decide
And, and
we can make something happen. And
if it
I
doesn't
don't know
work
if you
out
have,
this year, there's
yeah,
always next fall.
yeah. And I mean, that's one thing I'm trying to do as well, professionally is more speaking. Um, like more keynotes for companies. So, if your wife is looking for somebody with their company to be a speaker, or,
Or
share
your
a story about
husband.
perseverance. Yeah, yeah, sorry.
I say
If your
families
spouse,
come in all kinds of varieties these days,
yeah,
and dads
yeah,
are dads to everybody.
totally. Yeah, if your spouse, let's say that, if your spouse or partner
There you
um,
go.
is looking for a speaker. I can do Zoom speaking. I can do, I can come and speak to groups. I talk from everything on perseverance, um, and leadership, and
Mm-hmm.
perseverance and vulnerability, and um, doing the hard things, and nothing worth doing is ever easy, kind of had a
Oh yeah.
message. Um, so yeah, I'll
I mean,
shamelessly
that's
plug
that's
that one
that's one of
too.
my favorite. Like in the triathlon community, like everybody else, we have our own selection of memes, and the one that
Yeah,
comes right after the hippopotamus one, it because hippos can run so fast and swim so fast, so the bike leg is your only chance to beat them.
yeah,
Right after that one is the one that just has a flag and it says, "We do these things not because they're easy, but because we thought they would be easy."
yeah, yeah. It's like being a stay-at-home dad. Like, oh yeah, I'll totally be a stay-at-home dad. That'll be easy.
Yeah,
No,
and
not at all.
no, there's nothing easy about this gig at all. Well,
Yeah,
we're in about an hour now, so I need to go check on
yeah,
my kids for sure. And I know that you got a sick kiddo there, so
yeah,
look,
yeah,
I cannot thank you enough for joining us. For everybody who's watching this, those that watched it live on Facebook, or those that are going to be watching the recording of this on our
yeah.
YouTube channel later. We appreciate your support. The National At Home Dad Network is a 100% volunteer organization. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. Your memberships and your donations is what enables us to do what we do. If you go to our website, which is athomedad.org, there's a single button to click. A year's membership is all of $35. That gives you access to
Yeah.
everything from board meeting minutes and notes, because we believe in full transparency, all the way up to recordings from some of our past conventions. We've begun recording the conventions and putting the content that we can put online. Obviously, some of our breakouts are a little bit more emotional and safe places, so we're not broadcasting that out to the world. But, when we've got somebody talking about meal planning, it's there. But
Nice.
on behalf of the National At Home Dad Network, thank you for your time, Dennis. I really
Thanks for having
appreciate
me.
it. It's been a blast talking to you. It really has.
Yeah, thanks.
It
Yeah, I
really has.
appreciate you guys having me. Yeah, and I'll check out the conference
Yeah, check out the
in
conference. Go by the
September.
web. Yeah,
Yeah,
go by the website and just peruse the website. Most of the information you
cool.
need is all on there. And we hope to see you guys next month. I am looking at a couple of different possibilities right now, but we should be able to announce what our April webinar will be within the next couple of days. In the meantime, everybody have a great day, and